The situation within the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is a severe and dangerous one. Individuals are being succumbed to harsh levels of poverty and grave human rights violations. It is an isolated and secretive country with all media under state control. It stands as one of the hardest countries for foreign media to cover. The DPRK are constantly keeping the public in the dark about the grave human rights violations that are being perpetrated within the country. Following the end of the Second World War, Korea was divided into the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the Republic of Korea, most commonly known as North and South Korea. Free from constraints, the country adopted diplomatic and economic self-reliance policies in order to be free from any outsider influence. For these reasons, the DPRK is defined as an autarky state, as it exists without any external aid. The state invests copious amounts into its manufacture of nuclear weaponry and has conducted numerous missile tests which have resulted in sanctions being placed upon the country. The DPRK appears to put nuclear weapons before the needs of its own citizens. The consequence of this heavy investing is that the majority of the country is in serious poverty. The government's heavy focus on industry and nuclear weapons has led to the shortfall of food production, meaning that its citizens are unable to gain access to basic necessities such as food and healthcare. The economy is extremely weak, with its industrial stock beyond repair due to underinvestments and shortages. The various sanctions the United Nations have posed have also contributed to weakening the economy. In 2014, a report produced by the United Nations General Assembly detailed the extent of the human rights violations that the DPRK have and continue to commit. These included such horrific crimes as extermination, murder, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortions and other sexual violence, persecution on political, religious, racial and gender grounds, the forcible transfer of populations, the enforced disappearance of persons, and the inhumane act of knowingly causing prolonged starvation. According to the report, these violations meet the high threshold required for proof of crimes against humanity in international law. The situation within the DPRK is causing serious consequences for the population. Due to the crimes against humanity and the humanitarian crisis, hundreds of thousands of individuals have fled to China. China treats the refugees as illegal economic migrants and, as a result, those that flee into China are not protected by the Chinese government, putting a grave number of individuals at even further risk. Anyone who attempts to flee the DPRK has received brutal punishments and have even been killed. It is clear that the DPRK are abusing their power to a huge extent and putting the lives of millions at risk. The DPRK are no longer protecting their country, but instead instilling fear into each individual.